You know the story. We all do. A battle so legendary, its name has become the go-to phrase for any contest where the little guy faces a giant. Of course, I'm talking about David and Goliath, the ultimate tale of an underdog triumphing against, well, impossible odds. It's a story we hold up as proof of faith, courage, and miraculous victory.
So, picture this, the Valley of Elah. It's a key piece of land separating two ancient enemies, the Philistines and the Israelites. And for 40 long days, two armies have been stuck, paralyzed in a terrifying standoff. Every morning and every evening, the Philistine champion, this monster of a man named Goliath, stomps out and bellows a challenge. And every morning, every evening, the entire army of Israel just trembles in fear. The tension is just suffocating. Nobody dares to make a move.
But what if we've been telling this story completely wrong? What if the shepherd boy wasn't actually at a disadvantage? What if the giant, for all his terrifying power, was the one who was in real trouble? In this explainer, we're going to hit rewind on this ancient battle and uncover a totally different story, one about strategy, about hidden weaknesses, and about strengths that nobody saw coming. Okay, so to really get why our whole perception might be off, we've got to start by looking at the matchup the way it's always presented. This is the classic tale of the tape, right? The undisputed view of the two fighters as they squared off in that valley. All right, let's break it down. In one corner, you have Goliath. The texts say he's over 9 feet tall. His armor alone weighs 57 kilograms. That's literally like carrying another person on your back. This guy is the absolute peak of ancient heavy infantry. And in the other corner, David, a kid, a shepherd boy, not even a soldier. No armor, just his staff and a simple sling. I mean, on paper, this isn't a fight. It's an execution. Now, the traditional story pretty much stops right there. But this is where it gets interesting. What if we look closer? The first cracks in this whole underdog myth start to show up when we stop staring at the giant's obvious strengths and start looking for his hidden weaknesses.
You know, there's this weird little detail in this story. Goliath never actually charges. He just stands there and taunts the Israelites, yelling, "Come to me so I can feed you to the birds." Why? I mean, why would this fearsome warrior, the spearhead of an entire army, just wait for his opponent to walk up to him? This isn't just trash talk. It's a huge clue. It suggests he can't move quickly. Or maybe he won't.
Well, there's a fascinating medical theory that might just explain Goliath's strange behavior. A lot of experts now believe he probably suffered from something called acromegaly, a tumor on the pituitary gland. Now, this condition causes gigantism, which explains his incredible size, but it comes with a devastating side effect. The tumor often presses on the optic nerves, causing severely limited vision, maybe even double vision, and suddenly it all clicks into place. He moves slowly and clumsily because he can't see well. He needs a shield bearer not just for defense, but to literally guide him. And he yells, "Come to me," because he needs his opponent to get close, right into his very narrow field of vision. His greatest strength, his size, was also the source of his greatest weakness.
And this brings us to a really important concept in military strategy: asymmetric warfare. This is what happens when two sides don't just have different power levels, they fight in completely different ways. They don't play by the same rules because, well, they aren't even playing the same game.
See, Goliath was a specialist. He was heavy infantry, basically a walking tank. All of his gear, the heavy armor, the giant spear, the sword, it was all designed for one type of fight, and one type only: a brutal, face-to-face, hand-to-hand brawl. And in that context, yeah, he was unbeatable. But take him out of that context, and all that strength becomes a huge liability. His armor makes him slow, his weapons are totally useless at a distance, and his poor vision makes him a ridiculously easy target.
Now, while Goliath was a specialist in one kind of warfare, David was an expert in a totally different kind. We think of him as just a shepherd, but that is a massive misunderstanding of what he could do.
Being a shepherd in the ancient Judean hills was not some peaceful, quiet job. It meant protecting your flock in a harsh wilderness crawling with predators. David's day job had, out of pure necessity, made him an expert in a completely different category of warfare. He was a projectile warrior.
The sling was the shepherd's main weapon. They started learning as kids, and practice was a daily, high-stakes thing. I mean, David himself tells King Saul that he's fought off both lions and bears to protect his flock. This wasn't a hobby. This was constant, real-world combat training. Ancient slingers were famous for their incredible accuracy and power. They were basically the artillery of their day.
And this table just brilliantly illustrates the tactical mismatch. Goliath's sword is only good within, what, 2 meters? David's sling is lethal from 200 meters away. But it's the stopping power that's really shocking.
Ballistic tests show that a stone from an expert slinger hits with the same force as a bullet from a modern .45 caliber handgun. Yeah, this was no pea shooter. It was a deadly, long-range weapon. To put that in perspective, a skilled slinger could fire off a stone at speeds up to 150 kilometers per hour. A projectile moving that fast isn't just going to bruise you. It's going to penetrate armor, it's going to shatter bone, it's going to cause catastrophic injury. Goliath, with his face exposed and his vision shot, was a sitting duck.
So, when David walks down into that valley, he's not walking into Goliath's fight. Nope, he is making Goliath play his game. This isn't some miracle upset. It's the logical conclusion of a brilliant strategic mismatch.
Goliath's entire plan, his only path to victory, depended on David playing by the rules of single combat, walk up close and fight hand to hand. He was totally expecting this. When he sees David with just a staff, he's disgusted, asking, "Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks?" He doesn't even see the real weapon. He doesn't see the threat.
But David? He has absolutely zero intention of playing that game. He is a light, mobile, long-range warrior. His strategy is simple. Stay out of Goliath's reach, use his superior speed and agility, and strike from a distance where Goliath is completely and utterly defenseless. He's changing the very terms of the battle.
When David says this famous line, we usually hear it as just a statement of faith, but it's also a brilliant tactical declaration. He is literally listing the tools of Goliath's trade, sword and spear, the weapons of heavy infantry, and then contrasting them with his own source of power, which allows for a totally different way of fighting. He's essentially saying, you and I, we are not fighting the same kind of war.
And this totally reframes one of the most famous parts of the story. Remember when King Saul offers David his own heavy armor? David tries it on and takes it off, saying he's not used to it. We always interpret this as him being humble, but it's actually the single most critical strategic decision of the entire battle. Putting on that armor would mean accepting Goliath's rules. It would slow him down, it would kill his agility, and it would force him into a close-quarters fight that he could never, ever win. By saying no to the armor, David preserves his greatest assets and makes sure he can fight the battle on his own terms.
So, what can we take away from this retelling? Well, this ancient story isn't just a tale of faith. It is a masterclass in strategy. It is the original playbook for how the supposedly weak can actually defeat the strong.
And the playbook is crystal clear. First, you refuse to play by the giant's rules, just like David refused to fight Goliath's fight. Second, you have to recognize your own unconventional strengths. David's life as a shepherd wasn't a handicap, it was elite training. Third, turn your opponent's biggest strength against them. Goliath's incredible size made him a slow, half-blind target. Fourth, use speed and surprise. David ran towards the fight armed with a fast, unexpected, and deadly weapon. And finally, you have to choose your own battlefield. David turned that valley into a long-range firing zone, a place where he had total control.
This story really forces us to ask a pretty powerful question. In our own lives, in our jobs, in whatever challenges we're facing, what are the giant's rules that we've just accepted without thinking? Where have we assumed that the biggest, most powerful player always gets to set the terms of the game? David's victory teaches us that real advantage often comes from refusing to play their game, and instead creating a new one, a game built on our own unique and often underestimated strengths.
And in the end, we should probably remember the brutal reality of this victory. A psalm that wasn't included in the final Bible, found among the Dead Sea Scrolls, gives us David's own raw account. It wasn't a lucky tap on the head. It was a devastating strike, followed by a visceral act of war. David, the boy who refused to use a king's sword to start the fight, used the giant's own sword to end it, decisively and violently removing the threat to his people. It's a stark reminder that changing the rules isn't just clever, it can be world-changing.